I wanted to make sure that I refrain from talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 every single day or every single week or every single month and constantly putting out videos out there because it seems like people are doing this all the time and it definitely is getting out of hand. But there is a number of different information that I did want to go over with you guys talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 from some reputable sources out there. So I wanted to kind of go over it and also discuss how things are kind of getting out of hand here with what Nintendo's doing with the Nintendo Switch 2. And how we maybe won't have to wait too much longer before Nintendo gives us something on this next system outside of just saying, hey, we're going to talk about it sometime in the financial year. So we're going to get into that and a bit more. But before we do, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch and RPG videos first. And let's go ahead and jump right into it because we're going to talk about the release timing and an update on that. Shout outs to my man Stealth over there on Twitter, doing a great job because there's no way I would have known about this beforehand if it wasn't for him. And on Twitter, Stealth actually talked about a recent podcast from the game industry website, the Game Industry Podcast, with Chris Dring, and he provided an update based on what he's heard about the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, this is getting into what Mr. Christopher Dring had to say in the podcast. Quote, no developer I've spoken to expects it to launch this financial year. In fact, they've been told not to expect it in this financial year. A bunch of people I spoke to hope it's out in April/May time. Now, this very much lines up with what I've been saying and kind of what maybe people have been saying as well. I don't think people necessarily expected it to come out 100% in the financial year. So from March to March of next year, I don't think anybody expected it to be in that financial year. Now, I know some expected it maybe to be like March at the very end, but I don't think anybody was expecting it this year or very early, like January, something like next year. So having it maybe April or May definitely makes sense. If Nintendo, let's just say they say, hey, here's some more information on it later this year, which we're going to talk about in just a bit. And then they have something bigger, maybe early next year, maybe February or March. And then boom, they launch that thing in May or June or whatever the case is. I think that that would make complete sense. Or even if they have something, let's say later this year, and then it comes out early April with an event in January, that would be fine too. So I think it kind of lines up with what Nintendo did with the Nintendo Switch 1. The only difference with the Nintendo Switch 1 compared to Switch 2 is that Nintendo was probably in a little bit more of a hurry in terms of getting things because the Wii U's failure. But you also have to remember, because of the Wii U's failure, Nintendo definitely started planning for what they were going to do with the launch lineup, taking games that were going to be on the Wii U and putting them on the Nintendo Switch. Whereas with the Nintendo Switch 2, it's very different. They're not taking a bunch of games that were supposed to be on the Nintendo Switch and putting it on Switch 2. They've had time to actually develop games built specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, some of those might be also made for the Nintendo Switch 1, but I think that the big difference here is that Nintendo's actually taking their time to build out Nintendo Switch 2 games instead of having to adjust and say, okay, we're going to take these Switch games and put them over on Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I still think that those could happen. We could still see games, once again, that come out on both or that are dual launches, but it's a very different mindset and atmosphere when you're coming off of something successful and you still have a platform that's doing well enough on the market to sell millions of copies of software and of course sell millions of hardware in the quarters. So it makes sense that Nintendo is, one, making sure that they plan this the right way, but then also two, making sure that they really get things together before they decide to launch it. Because remember, there is no other system. It's not like they have some other type of portable device that's going to be selling a ton of units or anything. This is it. So you essentially have to take that planning that you would take for a portable system and the planning that you would take for a home console, and you have to put that together. Whereas, yes, that was the case for the Switch, but Nintendo still had the 3DS that they were kind of leaning on even within the Switch's first year or so. They were still looking at 3DS. Yeah, the sales were pretty much dying off, but they still had that as a somewhat revenue or something to lean on. This is not the case. It's all in on the Nintendo Switch 2 with the Switch 1 as a kind of like, okay, it's been there and maybe we'll get something, but this is going to be our main platform going forward. So it's absolutely a very different situation. Now, I do want to get into the next thing here, and that is a new patent slash information that's come out that the Nintendo Switch 2 could have a pretty cool feature to where you can have dockless TV play. Now, if you have a Nintendo Switch Lite, obviously without modding it or doing something, you cannot play that on the TV. You'd have to get a Nintendo Switch Original, a Nintendo Switch V2 with the better battery, or a Nintendo Switch OLED. Those are the ways that you can dock it, get a dock, put it on there, or get a third-party dock, put it on there. Switch Lites might be able to work with certain third-party docks, I'm not 100% sure. But if you're talking about Nintendo's official dock, you need that dock to be able to play it on the TV. Now, this feature apparently will let you have the ability with the Nintendo Switch 2 to essentially stream it or beam it to the TV, and you can play on the TV without a dock. Now, some people took that and kind of ran with it a bit more, stating that, oh, well, maybe there'll be two screen plates where you'll be able to do stuff like the Nintendo DS or the Nintendo 3DS or like the Nintendo Wii U, and that could be some cool features or different things that they do for certain games or for emulation or whatever the case is. And yeah, all that I guess is possible. I don't necessarily think that's going to be some type of standout thing. Nintendo, I think, learned their lesson with non-connected dual screen play. People don't necessarily want to look down then look back up, look down then look back up. It didn't work for Smart Glass for Xbox, didn't work with Sony when they tried to hack on PS Vita to PS3 or PS4 and having another screen there. It doesn't really work when it's not connected right then and there in your hands. If you're having it two separate screens, it's just not something that a lot of people are going to be excited about. Now, it's good as an option for those who did like the Wii U Play to have like a map on the bottom screen or inventory or items or something like that. I think it works well for that as an auxiliary thing, but obviously as the main hook or appeal, I don't think that Nintendo's going to go down that route. But I do feel that, yeah, having dockless play to where you can beam that same game to the TV to where you don't have to worry about having the dock, or if you forgot your dock and you went somewhere else, or if you don't want to move your dock from one room to another and unplug everything, you can just beam it to the TV some way through streaming. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to get it done, but I think that that would be a great feature to have to where everyone can just play it right then and there. I think that's actually something pretty cool. And like I said, it would be good as an optional feature overall. So if they do have that, that would be awesome. But it's getting kind of out of hand when I hear some people saying that they're going to do a bunch of different stuff with dual screen play and all this type of stuff. That's getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know if Nintendo's going to invest the time and effort to really do that. And I know third parties are going to be like, oh no, we're not doing that. Like, we already went through that before, and we definitely don't want to go through that again in terms of things. So even if they do have that type of feature to where you can have different types of displays on there between the TV and the Nintendo Switch 2 itself, I don't think it's going to be anything too elaborate. Now, let's move on to the next thing here, guys, which I found, which was interesting, and that's some new stuff from PH Brazil, who he was the one who originally put out the information that says that the Nintendo Switch 2 wasn't going to be 2014. Now, a while ago, there were many different sources and credible information out there that was saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 was going to launch in 2024, but then PH Brazil put out a statement saying, well, wait a minute, not so much, with his own rumor saying it's going to be 2025. And then the other sources like VGC and Eurogamer checked with their own sources and said, you know what? That is absolutely correct. And it's going to be a 2025 release. Now, he has came out with some more information stating that the Nintendo Direct might be sooner than we think. Usually it's September. Maybe it's going to be sooner than that based off of some information that he's heard. But once again, we didn't even know, or we don't know for sure if Nintendo will even be doing a Nintendo Direct, considering that they have the Nintendo Switch 2 that they're planning for as well. So we don't know if the typical September Nintendo Direct was even happening, but apparently he's stating that it might be sooner than usual. On top of that, more information coming on the Nintendo Switch 2 could be pushed up as well, with them pushing up the Nintendo Direct. So once again, it's one of those things where people have to calm down a little bit, getting a little bit out of hand with some of the stuff people are saying. I get that he's been a reliable source before, like with what I talked about, but let's not go out here saying that they're going to be doing this 100%. The Nintendo Direct announcement is coming within the next, I don't know, like 24 hours or something. I mean, listen, it could for sure, but what I don't want to do is sit here and say that all of this stuff that we're hearing with every single rumor and all of this is correct, and then it ultimately ends up not being correct. Now, once again, PH Brazil, he's gotten a number of things right, so I'm definitely going to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but let's not act like it's 100% foolproof, because things can change, as we've already seen before, and he's even stating things have changed, and he's even stating, hey, things have changed from where they were before, so who knows, maybe they'll change again. But yeah, if Nintendo was to have, hypothetically speaking, if they were to have a Nintendo Direct announcement very soon here, that would be pretty cool. I'd be down for a Nintendo Direct announcement. There's still a number of games which they could announce. I know that they're winding down, and yes, Nintendo is winding down, sales are winding down, like I get all of that, but there's still a bunch of stuff. I had a video recently that I did where I talked about the missing Nintendo Switch games, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Wind Waker HD. I talked about potentially getting some other titles on there as well. I mean, there are a number of games, Xenoblade Chronicles X, the list goes on and on, Fire Emblem 4 Remake. There are just a bunch of games that have not been announced yet or have been rumored or leaked that have not appeared yet that we know could come to the Nintendo Switch. Even something like Final Fantasy Tactics or Final Fantasy IX Remake. These are all things as well. So I feel that Nintendo definitely has at least one more solid to okay show for the Nintendo Switch when it comes to software, as developers are still wanting to take advantage of that 140 million install base, as we're still getting game announcements for the system. So to me, it makes sense that if they did this, that they would have another Direct. But yeah, being pushed up and then having the Switch 2 sooner than maybe we thought it could be, that'd be interesting for sure. People are chomping at the bit to get new Nintendo Switch 2 information, so I think that'd be cool. But once again, we gotta wait and see before we start rejoicing and saying that this is going to be awesome and all of that. Now, I do want to just speak on some of the other things that have been out there, give you guys a little bit of a refresher for those who maybe forgot about it or didn't understand what was going on with some of the previous stuff. So essentially, this Nintendo Switch 2, when it comes to the graphics and all of that, people talk about it so much. I get asked questions about its performance to Steam Deck. There was some information that came out that were saying from like Moore's Law or something like that, which he says so much stuff. I'm not sure how much I believe or not, but it's going to be comparable to Steam Deck and based off some of the specs and stuff that they know, but it's an NVIDIA custom chip. And if you've watched Digital Foundry and really know much about the graphics and all of that, like, you really can't compare it right now at this point, especially when it's a custom chip and there's the games that really need to be tested. So unless you get every single game and you play it on that device and you benchmark and you do all these different things, you're not really going to know exactly what it's capable of outside of looking at a spec sheet, and the spec sheet obviously does not tell the full picture. So it's probably going to be, for the most part, a custom NVIDIA chip that you really can't compare to anything that's out right now at this point. Now, once again, it could still be, yeah, right around performance of Steam Deck, which would be actually a huge upgrade over the Nintendo Switch. I just personally feel, based off of what I know, not a lot, but what I know off of custom chips and what I know off of what Digital Foundry has talked about when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 and what their performance test that they did in terms of relative and what they said about it, saying, hey, look, you can't really do this, but we're just kind of throwing out some theories when it comes down to it. I think that overall, it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a very good chip, and I think it's going to do some things that are obviously cool compared to what Nintendo's done in the past. One of those things, obviously, DLSS, which is going to be great in terms of potentially getting things to look a lot better than they could beforehand without putting as much stress on the system, potentially improve frame rates. There's various different aspects that DLSS can do based off on how you program and how you code for it and the game itself, which once again, Digital Foundry has put out there if you want to check out some of those with what they've talked about with the Nintendo Switch 2. I still feel that there's going to be Nintendo Switch ports that get updates on the Nintendo Switch 2. I think that Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I think that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I think those are candidates. And I feel that Nintendo might even do this with the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy. Imagine this. You get Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and all of the DLC, all of the updates in one package on the Nintendo Switch 2 at 1080p, 60 frames per second. That right there might sell more than all of the games combined. No, I'm joking. It probably wouldn't do more than all the games combined. But man, that would be awesome. And I'm hoping they do it with Xenoblade Chronicles. And of course, Xenoblade Chronicles X. We still got to wait and see what happens with that. Also, backwards compatibility. I think that that's something that people are obviously very, I would say, anxious about because of what happened with the Nintendo Switch compared to the Wii U. But people need to realize that Nintendo has a okay, I wouldn't say the best, but an okay track record with backwards compatibility dating from the GameCube and up, and also from the Game Boy as well. GameCube to Wii, Wii to Wii U. You look at the Game Boy to Game Boy Color to the GBA, GBA to the DS, DS to the 3DS. So they've done backwards compatibility with the previous system before. Now, they haven't done anything super crazy to where you can play like all the generation games at times, like when Sony did with the PlayStation 3, playing PS1, PS2, and PS3 games. But I do feel that they done okay with it. Not the best, but okay. And you're looking at it from the Wii U to the Switch, you got a whole format change. You're going from the optical discs to the cartridges. I think that the Nintendo Switch 2, from what we understand from the patents that are out there, from the information, it's also using cartridges. So I see this as a DS to 3DS situation more than a Wii U to Switch situation, where they're taking what they have the graphics, they have what they need, and they're just saying, hey, we're making an iterative system, which they've kind of already stated that they're doing that. They're making an iterative system where they're bringing over an NSO and they're bringing over a lot of the stuff, then also making a completely new graphics custom chip instead of using that off-the-shelf Tegra X1. So what do you guys think overall about these Nintendo Switch 2 rumors and the updates? Are they getting out of hand a bit? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.